going into this episode,
Yes.
one of our biggest fans passed away
Yep.
a little while ago.
Yep.
My mother-in-law, Jan,
Yes.
and I'll try not to cry. But
Yep.
she was one of our biggest fans.
She was, yes.
Always on her social media, she was sharing whatever we were doing. And we lost her about 12 weeks ago. And I just want to dedicate this episode to her. So love you, Jan. This one's for you.
The Brown Podcast.
Question.
Hit me with it.
You just did a lovely tribute to Jan,
I did.
our number one fan, who we lost about 12 weeks ago.
Yes.
My mother-in-law recently went on a cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she went, overseas and did a cruise and stuff. And my question, sorry, we normally start. Did I actually start with a question then? I don't know whether I did.
Not really. You went into a statement, but
Did I? Okay. So question,
Okay, go.
you know your Australian music. Do you remember the Radiators?
I
Okay.
know the name, but don't ask me a song.
Okay, cool. Hold that thought.
Mm-hmm.
That was my question. To go with that question is the statement that my mother-in-law went on a cruise recently and met the lead singer of the Radiators.
And his name is?
Somebody McGee. No, I don't know. I actually have no idea.
Tits McGee, but yes. Go
Anyway,
on.
I was talking to my mother-in-law and she goes, we're all going to meet up because they're doing a bit of a gig and he's from this area and there's a bunch of us from the cruise have all agreed that we're going to meet up and go to one of their gigs. And I've gone, do you know who the Radiators are?
Yeah.
And she goes, no, but that'd be great. There's a whole bunch of us. And I've gone, okay, you have fun with that. And I cannot wait to see the look on her face when she is standing at a gig with the classic Aussie band, the Radiators, and they play their anthem.
Oh my God.
You give me head. You give me head.
Good job, Liz. Enjoy.
Today's guest, look, it's an unusual interview, not for the person that we've got on, for the location of where he is.
He is in his car recording this interview on the fly.
Yeah, on the side of a road because he was trying to get to a studio, didn't quite make it, and pulled over on the side of the road and he went, guys, here it is. Do you want to do it? And we've gone, why not? This is life. I think this is the first podcast we've ever done where somebody's in the car.
Yeah, I had no plans to be in the car, actually. I was moving, I'm founding a school, so I went from one school to the next, and I was striving to get to my building before we got on this call, and I was like, hey, got to do it. Had a weird day, so my apologies. I pray this is not a lack of professionalism, however. Being an entrepreneur, we're consistently on the move.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes people have to realize no excuses.
I mean, I think, look, it could be a new idea, carpool podcasting. We'll just get that and run with it.
I want to know the life story. Your Instagram is incredible. We actually came across it because my wife actually followed you and said, you need to check this guy out. He's amazing. Ex-Marine. But what you talk about is just incredible. Like the motivational side of things, the inspirational side of things is just incredible. What is your story? Because it is fascinating.
Really, it's a weird smorgasbord of a lot of different aspects of life. So I came up single parent household. Father wasn't present. My mother got to a point she couldn't afford all of us to stay there, so she sent me to live with my grandmother. Well, in the midst of this, my grandmother's in her 70s at the time, right? So my grandmother's 99 now. So she's high 60s, young 70s, played a lot of bingo. So when I grew up, it was an amazing thing that we would build off morals and principles, but simultaneously you got taught things like, you're the man of the house. I'm a kid though.
Yeah.
So I have all siblings that are sisters. So when my mother said you're the man of the house and then simultaneously says, I don't have it, don't ask for nothing, you're not getting nothing, then you start getting things your own type of way and justifiably in your mind because you don't want to burden your mother. So 12 years old, I'm on intense probation, right?
Mm-hmm.
10th grade school year, this guy comes into my school. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Lean on Me with Joe Clark. This guy is Joe Clark. It's an American movie. It's about East Orange, New Jersey. This guy just came in, took over the school and changed the school. Well, I must have been his test bench, his test dummy, his everything. Like his focus was on me. So this estranged kid, his 10th grade teacher, takes me under his wing. I mean, he has me filling potholes in my own community on Saturdays. Like he's on top of me. I can't go left. I can't go right. He puts me in charge of a losing team and says, you have to win. I'm like, win? They're not even giving us participation trophies, right? He stayed 2 feet in my chest. By the time we were in the 12th grade, that team was 3rd in the nation for drilling, right? But he just didn't cut me any breaks. He said, hey, son, the S on Superman's chest does not stand for stupid. And you go, oh, what?
That's good.
Don't tell me the baby ugly. Tell me what we're going to do with the ugly baby. You're going, what are you talking about? Not knowing he was preparing me for life itself. Like a lot of people just want you to be strong as a man. They just want you to be tough as a man, but they don't want you to be intelligent.
Yeah.
Well, the S on Superman's chest does not stand for stupid. Superman wasn't the greatest because he was the strongest. Really, he was super smart as well. And sometimes we supersede that. When he says, oh, don't tell me the baby ugly. Tell me what we're going to do with the ugly baby. I can't control what hand life dealt me. Right.
Yeah.
But whatever hand I got to play whatever it is. So whatever problems, whatever situations and circumstances that come to me, I can't put it back. So figure out a way. I don't care if you got to slick the baby hair down, put a bib on it, put one of them Velcro bones on the top of his head. You can't put a baby back in the womb once it's out. It's out. Figure out what you got to do with this sandwich of life that you have and then make it through, right? Make the best out of it and then make the best better. Absolutely. So he was the one man in my neighborhood that really was influential. He was retired from the Marine Corps, hence the reason that I went in the Marine Corps, because I was like, this guy saved my life. At this time, I got 16 people that I know has been murdered. I'm at to date now.
Yeah.
But in that vein, my city was just one of those cities. You're on this side of things or you're on this side of things. I was converting to another side of things.
What city?
So went to Marine Corps, Conway, South Carolina.
Okay.
Very, very small town, big city dreams, big city problems. It's the craziest thing when you live in a small town, but in a small town, like you can grow up and call somebody's mother your aunt with no blood relation. And then you get to a certain point in life, you're shooting at each other.
Yeah. Wow.
So you're having funerals with people that you actually grew up with.
Yeah.
The town is not big enough to beef with anybody else. So I go to the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps was an amazing experience. My first job in my life. I graduated June 6th, went to the Marine Corps June 12th. I'm in the Marine Corps and I'm still striving to impress my 10th grade teacher. My whole life has been striving to make this guy say, I've done something phenomenal.
So for us, we in Australia, we don't have the Marine Corps. So what is the Marine Corps? Just so that those that are listening know what it is. I mean, it's a division of the military, obviously.
I think it might be like the SAS over here, potentially.
So what is your toughest branch in Australia?
Yeah,
SAS.
the SAS. Yeah.
That would be the Marine Corps. Okay. So we're the smallest, but arguably, and there's no disrespect to any other soldiers, but we're gonna fly our banner. But everybody knows, like, the Marine Corps is the best branch of the service. And it's because of the fact that we are so small. It's the fact that the motivation, inspiration, education they put into you, the history that they teach you, and you're responsible for the thread that you sew into this cloth. We've taken an oath that's a little different. Like, you don't need another fraternity, sorority. You don't need another brotherhood or sisterhood. You being a Marine is enough. And when we get out, we're not used to be Marine. You're still a Marine. So I can see a Marine across seas. I can see you in the airport. I'm going to buy you a drink. I'm going to hug you. You're going to be my brother. And I don't have to know anything else about you for the rest of your days. So if I see you, it's me and you until the finish. If I've just met you. So it's amazing brotherhood and amazing sisterhood. So I go through the Marine Corps, still trying to impress this guy. I'm above all and everything in the world. And simultaneously, my friends are getting murdered. So I've lost more friends on this little corner and block that I grew up on than I lost in 15 years of war in the Marine Corps.
Wow. Far out.
I've lost more people in the town that I'm from that I know that I've ever met in the Marine Corps. I don't have as many funerals in the Marine Corps as I do on my block. So I come from a war zone.
And did anyone from your community or town go to the Marine Corps as well, or was it just you that you knew?
Oh, no, absolutely. So it was 4 of us that went in at the same time. I'm the only one that retired. After that, we started this gateway because Pops, as I called him, because he was really that for me. And then everybody started calling him Pop. So everybody's transition from going to the Army went into the Marine Corps. So it was one of those amazing things that this man, he's the only real positive man that took time with kids for no reason. He paid for my prom. I mean, he did these amazing things for no reason. You're like, why? And I was like, oh, Pops, I did good, right? He was like, nobody gives you credit for doing good. Son, you're supposed to do good. You got credit for nothing, right? So I retire, and while I was in the Marine Corps, I focused on, in the Marine Corps, esprit de corps, spirit of camaraderie, in the Marine Corps, motivation, transformation, troop welfare, all of these things, leadership schools, you're ingrained and entrenched in these things, right? Mm-hmm. So what I realized was I was very good with building culture for people. I was very good at the spirit of camaraderie, putting people in a space to be motivated about the most egregious situations in the world. Like, we will find the light in the darkest moments, right? So when I came out of the Marine Corps, I realized when I took that oath to defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, there was a domestic enemy that nobody considered, and it was the enemy on the inside. Yeah. So when I transitioned out of the Marine Corps, it wasn't about the bear on the outside, if you will. It's those little thoughts that you told yourself. Third grade me still pops up. Even though I'm successful, I'm retired. At this point, I'm an honorary doctor. All of these things that are transpiring, some days I'll wake up and I'll see third grade me from the broke side of town, from an impoverished community, and that poverty mind state will start to set in. So as I started speaking in the Marine Corps literally started flying me around to do speeches, to recruit people. I wasn't a recruiter. In 2007, I had a viral video before that was a thing. I did a poem called And She Calls, and it went everywhere. And then the rest of it was history. I've been speaking in every dark hole and corner you could think of to Harvard University, right? So it's just really understanding that there's a lot of people that are broken, and especially as men. Like the Marine Corps, the hardest part was the machismo of the Marine Corps. Like, you have to be a man's man or a woman's woman, right? You can't come in here. You couldn't even go to medical if you're hurt, because everybody's looking like, oh, you hurt? It's okay. You're crying. Yeah. What are you doing? I'm playing the smallest violin in the world. So we demonized. It was toxic masculinity for real. We demonized going to the hospital or being hurt. But in the world, that's how they do a lot of men. Like, where's the refuge for men? We have a status quo. We have a list of standards. We have these things that we have to meet. But the moment that I say I'm broken, the world's going like, broken? You're a man up, stop crying. Men don't cry. Then you go to church and they tell you Jesus wept. It's just confusing for us, right?
Yeah, for sure. But how is that in the Marine Corps? Like a lot of what we talk about is mental health. If somebody in the Marine Corps was struggling and they weren't doing well, whether it be they're suffering depression, anxiety, they've suffered traumas, could they talk about it at the time with their peers or their, I guess their mates at the time, or was that seen as weak?
So, when I began in the Marine Corps in 95, we weren't actively at war, right? Mm-hmm. So everything was seen as weak. You're supposed to step on people's back and gain speed. Everything was seen as weak at my level of leadership. But I will say, as the Marine Corps started to grow and mature, we had to go to schools to start to understand now we're in war. And there are people that's only operated in peacetime, and now they're thrown into war. And now you have people that's also only operated in wartime. So when they come back, the adrenaline is pumping so fast, they don't know how to calm down. Yeah. So now you had to start putting these things in place where it became okay. Like, I need to check on. I need to make sure. Leaders had to check in. I needed to know how much food you had in your house. It was almost to the point that you needed to know when this man's wife's menstrual cycle cut on. So you can know I need to know where you were from. Were you from a single parent household? Did you have siblings? How did you grow up? So we had to be ingrained into the Marines that were in our charge. So it did come a day where we had to start looking at mental health. Still, it was a bit, because we didn't look at mental health the same we did as regular health, like physical health.
Yeah. So you said you joined in 95, and that would have been non-wartime, but then it would have become wartime.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So after 9/11,
how was that transition from peace into war?
The Marines, we're a motley crew of humans, right? So I can remember where we were when the towers dropped. And most people would think Marines didn't want to go to war. The hardest thing was picking who had to go. And people are fighting like, oh, he went last time. It's my turn. Yeah. So it was this pull like, no, we need to get in a fight. Yep. But the thing that happens is when you come back and you're at this level of jumping around, and everybody doesn't get to go, right? It's just the needs of the Marine Corps. So the people who didn't go, they even fell into depression, feeling like they weren't pulling their weight as a Marine.
Yeah.
So you had to start explaining to them, listen, if you're in the school and you're teaching, that's needs of the Marine Corps. You're putting a warfighter in place to fight. So you had a mental health sector over here. If you're not boots on the ground fighting, am I really a Marine? Absolutely a Marine. I want you to look at your body and say, if my toes don't do what my fingers do, are my toes still valuable? If my heart doesn't do what my lungs do, are the lungs still valuable? So you had to start getting into that mental psyche of what was going on, along with post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Right.
So
yeah.
It was a different space, because now I have two different type of leaders. I was a hybrid leader.
Yeah.
I was in the peacetime and in wartime. For those that only were in war, where the standards were a little different. Because in war, I don't have time to have conversation. I got a point and click and you need to go.
Yeah.
In peacetime, we could have dialogue, because I can teach you about why I'm telling you to do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah. Did you go and see any of the, well, for want of a better term, action? Were you in the middle of all that, or were you a leader that was directing traffic, or?
I'm more directing traffic. I was the subject matter expert for electronics on a plane that was just getting bought into the fleet. So that means I'm locked into a position.
Yep.
For this plane, because even though I'm a warfighter, you can't take somebody out of the field and get them to work on electronics on the airplane.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
So now I have to do that. I got to build a squadron. I got to go teach it to school. So I was the person that also felt like, wait a minute, I'm a leader and I ain't in the fight.
Yeah.
So you had to deal with that thing and still push your Marines and explain to your Marines while simultaneously you're wrestling with that. I need to get in the fight with me and mine.
Because it would be hard, because you are as essential as anybody on the ground, because you have to make shit happen. You have to make things work. You have to give them the technology and the skills and everything and the leadership to be able to go, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And particularly at that point in history, that was a phenomenal, for want of a better term, yet again, it was a phenomenal moment in history.
Absolutely. It changed the world.
Yeah.
Everything about America changed like overnight.
Yeah. Everything about the world changed. And like, you know, even sitting here in Australia, it changed everything here as well.
It was a spooky time.
Yeah.
And then so you'd prepare for yourself. Like, so me, I didn't do that, but I went to SEER school. Like, I wanted to go to the toughest schools in case I'm a POW. I want you to put me through this whole training. So I'm prepping for everything, knowing one day I can go.
Yeah.
And even these schools are draconian, right? So you're in SEER school, they're treating you like a POW. Like, you're seeing the effects. You have to see the psych in 2 weeks. They're doing these things, bringing you closest to the reality as humanly possible. So it's just amazing when you look back at it, how much you could have to endure mentally to do the things that we did physically.
And would you say, in your opinion, that America is still at war, but the war is now within itself almost?
America's always been at war with itself.
Yeah.
So it's never been a different thing. We're a weird family, right?
Yeah.
So we're a very weird family that oftentimes people don't realize we're fighting to be acknowledged as family.
Yeah.
So the toughest thing is to fight for. All right, so take me. I'm Black. I'm African American in America, right? I'm very versed in the history of America and how we as a people were done here, why we were brought here, how we were brought here. We went from the Middle Passage, the chattel slavery, the Black codes, the Black laws, the civil rights movement, to the crack epidemic, to the prison industrial complex. Like, I'm thoroughly ingrained in the way that runs, right?
Yeah.
So on one end of the stick, I go fight for the country. And where I'm from, certain people look at you like you fight for a country, don't care nothing about you.
Yeah.
On the other end of the stick, it was, you're not worthy to be here. So you fit in a very weird space.
Yeah.
Because I'm living in these two different worlds.
Because what do you do if you don't fight for it? Then what are you fighting for? I mean, if you don't fight, then you're ignored, and then you become part of the problem. But if you stand up and fight for what you're trying to achieve, then that is the ultimate goal, right? If that
absolutely. So it's being in an abusive family, and if I can explain it that way, I never want to denounce my last name, but I also have to fight the people in my family to be safe.
Yep.
So it puts you in a very perplexing space, especially when you come home to see the people that's supposed to protect and serve you are treating you like an enemy combatant, and you've seen real enemy combatants, right? So people think of that war as, did you go to war? I didn't go to that war that's on TV. We're in a war every day if you're in the military. There's somebody in a trench right now in a hole, and they're not calling it war. It's just an operation. I've been to a whole bunch of operations, right? But somebody's getting bombed. Somebody's son is in a whole foxhole right now. Somebody's daughter is somewhere carrying a pack. So it's always we're at war. At all times we're at war. And to come home and have to come back to community and know that my community is at war. Not just black to white, black to black, like on every echelon. If you get wealthy, all of a sudden, either you're eating with everybody, you become a plate to be eaten. There's a very consistent off balance, on balance that you have to play. Like it's disheartening, but then you have to make a decision. I was one of those people who decided you're going to have to make a decision. The dichotomy of who you are is not going to change. The playing field's not going to be level. So you better learn to run on uneven ground. Some people lay down and say, it's going to give me an excuse not to run the ball. Me, just run the ball on uneven ground. It's not going to be fair. So what? It's going to be tough. So what? Everybody's not going to understand. So what? Life is going to be hard either way. So if it's going to be hard, let me fight for what it is that I want and let that be hard and hope for a better tomorrow for my grandkids, than rather sit in this hard space and just say, it's never going to change. It's always been. It's always going to be. So I'd rather fight and die for the betterment of the people, even if I don't see the day in my lifetime, than to sit down and say somebody should do something. We have to start realizing we're the somebody.
So what made you jump out of the Marines then? Was there a turning point or a catalyst to make you say, all right, I'm done, I'm moving on to the next thing now?
Oh, no, I retired.
Oh, you retired?
21 years.
21
years. Yeah, I did 21 years. I got in and rumbled all the way to the finish. Even inside the Marine Corps, just fighting for, it's still one of those things that we're striving to balance. Think about African Americans wasn't even allowed in the Marine Corps until 1942. And then there was a whole set of laws, right? This is not that far, right? So if you're under 60, you got to think, in the United States of America, if you're under 60, you're still in the first generation of people, if you're black people, that's been equal rights in America. Think about that.
It's not that long, is it?
My mother had to go through the back doors of the stores. I get to go through the front doors. So that's a layer that's total. If you look up my city, if you Google it right now and type in Conway, South Carolina, slavery, there was a guy in 2019 that was charged with slavery. He enslaved a man, worked him for free, beat him, and it's a block away from the courthouse. So when I tell people that the playing field ain't level, some people say, well, you're complaining. I'm like, listen, in the economic bracket, I'm in the top 3% of America. I'm not hurting for money. I've had a very successful career. I move around speaking everywhere on the planet. I live my life on my terms, right?
Yep.
But I'm not blind either. My mother, we think slavery, slavery's so far away. My mother couldn't go through the front door of the stores I walk through the front door of right now.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago. So it's a very spooky space.
It feels like, we've obviously come a long way now, but for somebody born in, say, 2020, that sometimes might have an opinion on it. They're too young to really even realize that it wasn't that long ago. Like, it feels like a long time ago, but Jesus Christ, like you say, like 60 years ago, we were in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Martin Luther King, 68? He died at 68. I was born in 77. Right?
Yeah.
It's right here. And then even now, striving America in the ideology of we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and all these things. Now they're striving in the state that I'm in. They don't even want to teach that history past 1970.
Really?
Because of the black eye. They don't want the kids to learn. I was like, wait a minute, like we gave the Native Americans smallpox.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we didn't create a country, but we can't act as if we didn't do these things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This country was made this way through brute force. Like we can say it how we want to say it, but at the end of the day, it does not mean that we're not striving to be the best. What it does mean is we have to attack and address these issues when I grew up, we had this statement that said, what goes on in this house stays in this house. It was the worst statement in the world because that's where they hid pedophile uncles and
100%.
drug addict mothers, right? America is striving to live under the term of what goes on in this house stays in this house. No, we need to put it on the front lawn and air this out, right?
Yeah.
And then we can get to the healing process. But if we don't acknowledge it first, we'll never heal.
This is the Brown Park Podcast. Now, a word from our sponsors. This is the Brown Park Podcast with Christo and Dion. Now back to the show.
So, what do you go around and teach? What do you talk about? What's top of mind for you?
So, culture in the vast majority of everything, because culture is a common denominator to anything in the world. So there's a book called The Culture Code, and it talks about what culture is. Culture is showing people that you care, and when you show people you care, they'll show them that they're safe. So when I speak on, I'm a transformational speaker, not a motivational speaker. So I believe that in order to transform people, you have to speak with a certain level of motivation, a certain level of education, and a certain level of inspiration. And that will later on build transformation. So I actually go through a why process, figure out the hurts and needs of the people that I'm speaking to and address it directly if that shoe fits me. A lot of people just speak on whatever. Me, if I'm not the medicine for what's ailing you, I don't speak.
Yeah.
So mind state, and actually self-love is one of the biggest things that we speak on, whether it's in the prison, in a school system, understanding who you are. We study everything in the world, but we don't study ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we don't trust ourselves.
It all begins there, right? It all begins with yourself, and then you move outside of your inner self to then grow.
Absolutely. If you can deal with the storm on the inside, the outside doesn't mean anything at all.
Even on that whole smartphone thing, there's a saying something like, "We're drowning in information, but we're starving for knowledge." So that's where the likes of what you do hopefully delivers that knowledge within EQ and emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a lot of times people don't understand that all this artificial intelligence and smartphone, they're striving to emulate or imitate a human. In this pecking order of things, you're the master computer. There's an artificial intelligence that we're believing in, but we're superseding the authentic intelligence, which is us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you've seen America through a lot of different times, right? So you were there for 9/11. You helped America traverse its way through that. You've also now gone through the Donald Trump era of America and has seen that come out the other side. Now I can't preach to anything to do with that because we're sitting in Australia. We're a very comfortable little nation, so we are not that big on the grand scheme of things. But how does America move forward from this point, in your opinion?
America has to, it's going to sound crazy sometimes. I don't want this to be a bad soundbite.
No, I know what you mean, and we promise you we will not turn it into a bad soundbite because that's not what we're about.
There's a lot of self-healing.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of, this is going to be crazy. The beauty of Donald Trump. I just said that.
Yeah, no,
yeah. Definitely let me finish that part.
yeah, no.
The beauty of Donald Trump was Donald Trump took all the masks off.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem. I've served with racists, open racists. Never had a problem with those guys. And everyone's like, oh, so-and-so's racist. I was like, yeah, don't have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
A problem with closet racists. That's scary. Donald Trump was a necessary evil. That he took a lot of masks off a lot of people, and it made America really look at themselves and say, okay, let's deal with this cancer that we have in front of us. A lot of truth that he exposed, even though it was wicked and that it's like ripping the scab off, and now you see the pus in the scab. Like, you got to deal with this thing now. So the thing that America has to do to move forward is turn itself inward and fight that internal battle that we have to fight. We can't cover it. We can't smooth it over. We just have to sit down in the funk, in the filth of the situation, get our hands in the grit and grime of it, and sort this thing out. Because right now we're a broken people, and my people has always been a broken people. So it's kind of like welcoming everybody to the fold. Like, oh, welcome to the picnic. Now let's figure this thing out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was really well put.
And I mean, we interviewed a guest a little while back, and he said, you know, there's a buffalo and a cow metaphor where cows will run away from the storm. They never actually deal with it, but the buffalo will run into the storm and deal with it and get through it quicker. So it feels like that America, or, you know, anyone for that matter, but they need to stop running away from the problem and run into it and actually start dealing with the real issues.
The other problem is, and I have friends, and then being in the Marine Corps is crazy because so many coaches, I met people that never saw a black person in their life. Like one night I was woke up by one of my Marines, he's shaking. Bloody, wake up. I'm like, what are you talking about? What's wrong, dog? I'm thinking something's about to happen. I'm looking for M16, like, what's about to happen? He's not, the bottom of your feet are white. I'm like, I said, so are the palms of my hand. And he goes, and he's sitting on his rack and he's looking and he's going, why aren't the palms of my hands black? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm sorry, I've never seen a black person in my life for real.
What?
So what do you mean? He said, only on TV. So what I realized in that moment, the thing about America is, just as broken as I am, the other side of the fence is broken too. We've all bought in and drunk the juice of a culture that's made some of us elitists and we don't know it. And it made some of us feel like we're inferior and we don't know it. So we really need to have the dialogue so we can start fixing the situation.
Hey, Life, I just wanted to touch on, I just want to move away from the politics thing for a second, but in one of your videos you said about somebody pulling you up for wearing your mask still from COVID or whatever, and then you spoke about, yes, I'm wearing a physical mask. Yep. I'm wearing a physical mask, but you've been wearing a mask and nobody's even seeing it.
Absolutely.
Touch on that for us, because I love that.
It's a lot of people that walk around with these masks on like, I feel good, I'm happy, especially in social media. You put your best life in social media. All the American influencers of the generation behind me, I really either write their speeches, I'm in their coaching programs, I'm coaching their people. So I watch these multimillionaire, new first generation multimillionaires jump outside and they have this look and all this stuff. They're falling apart on the inside. Or the ones of us who didn't hit the million when everybody else hit it, but they're striving to keep pace with the Joneses, they're dying on the inside. Then you got the people in the neighborhoods and towns where they're going through things, but we'll put on all these nice clothes, but on the inside, we're tore up. We don't want anybody to see the fact that I'm broke for real. Not just broke in my account, I'm broken in my life. I'm hurting, I'm striving to look tough. I'm going through a storm, but I have to put on this mask and smile and make everybody believe that I'm everything that I'm not, especially in social media. Yeah. Half millionaires standing on fake cars and all this stuff. I'm like, you just borrowed $20 from me. Oh man, that mask where you can't even look at yourself in the mirror is a different mask. That mask where you wake up in the morning, everything that you spoke on was against your internal self, like your moral compass. You go against it because you need the likes on Instagram. You need these comments and all these things. You're scared to be yourself. The beautiful thing about the world decided to call me life is the fact that life ain't always right, but life is always real. There's a loser who wins every day and a winner who loses every day. There's a baby born with an addiction every day, and then there's somebody addicted that wins the life. It's not right, but it's real. So the beautiful part is I can be 100% transparent. I can jump on the stage and say I was molested at 8 years old. Yep. It was very, very difficult. It was tough. I didn't even know that it impacted me until I went to Australia, actually. Craziest thing, Australia, 2011 at the International World Conference for Human Rights with Dr. Angela Davis at James Cook College in Townsville, right? Guy, he's on the radio. He's talking about the Aboriginal community and the recidivism rate at the time was 99%. He had this program called Red Dust Healing. In the program, he had changed the recidivism rate for Aboriginal males. 98% of the people that went through his course never went back to jail. So we were on this radio talking about it, like, what's going on? And boom, he's talking to me, but he's doing the thing, right? So, I'm not crying. It's like the breeze in here, something's wrong, right? And he's like, that's it. If you touch the first hurt and fix the first hurt, it's like the domino effect in your life that releases these doors that opens the problems. So the same way the first hurt can create problems in your life that you don't see. You have to touch that first hurt to fix those problems. People have on these masks and they're not willing to touch the hurts. Do you know in certain places in America, I walk in certain neighborhoods, if I'm looking at somebody, I'm like, what you looking at? And they think that you see their hurt. They think that I see the stain in your shirt, right? Yeah. That's a mask that I'm glad I don't wear. Now, I understand this is the placebo. I do. I've seen the studies. I do. Also remember being on a ventilator 4 days. Also remember my lungs not working. Also remember walking into the space. And this is when we talk mental health. I go into, and I know this wasn't a question, but it's just a thing that I strive to tell people. I went in, couldn't breathe. I forgot how to breathe. Like COVID for me, I got it straight out of the syringe, whatever.
Wow. Yeah.
Big Pharma don't come get me, right? Anyway, whatever this thing that was created on this Petri dish, right? I got a very high dosage of whatever it was. So I'm going to the hospital on a ventilator. Guy walks in, and I'm the first case in the hospital. It's like an E.T. movie. Like I'm going through level and level and level. These big plastic sheets. There's a door that opens. It's freezing cold. I'm the only patient on the floor. I was like, I'm doing a ditty, like in through your nose, like you smell a rose. Out through your mouth, and blowing it out. They're teaching me to breathe.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm consciously doing something I should be subconsciously doing. And he looks at me and says, hey, Gunny. I said, yes, sir. And through your nose, like smelling a rose. Out through your mouth, like bro. He said, listen, we fought enemies we haven't seen. We didn't know before, right? I was like, yes, sir. And through your nose, like you blow out through your mouth, like bro. He says, let me explain something to you, Gunny. I said, yes, sir. I'm still trying to keep it together, right? And he goes, I need you to know one thing. One, we've never seen it. I'm not going to lie to you. We don't even know what this is. But the most important thing I need you to do, he said, you cannot afford to have one bad thought. He must have seen it in my face.
Yeah.
I look over. There's 2 big pieces of glass they wheeled me through. People are leaning on the glass like I'm a fish in a fishbowl, like I'm a science experiment. The whole house is outside looking in. I look over his shoulder. It's the count. I remember when COVID first started and they had the body count going and going. I'm looking over his shoulder at the TV. The body counts are just going up. And I'm looking at him and he looked at my face and says, listen, I've been a medical doctor for 40 years in the Navy. What I want you to understand is this. If you have one bad thought, this thing will drop your immune system and it's going to kill you. So I looked at him. I said, Doc, how many people beat it? And he's like trying to find the number. I said, I don't care how many. Just count me over there with them. But the amazing thing is he's telling you a negative thought literally drops your immune system to the point where this thing could kill me. Then I started looking at social media. I started looking at these people with these masks on, and they're thinking about this mask. I'm like, do you know how detrimental it is to entertain negative energy all day in your social media? How detrimental it is to watch the news every day about every person that got shot or talk about or deal with or lay in the muck or trauma share. It's killing you. So I look at my community and see the sickest community in America, but it's because we entertain negativity all day. The mask that I wear might be the placebo, but in my darkest times, I always can find a positive light. A lot of these people fake positive, but really are dying on the inside. It's killing them. So let's be bold enough to be transparent to say, I ain't perfect. Yeah, I messed that up. Because once you say it, nobody cares. Once you say it, it disappears. But if you fight with it, everybody's going to keep picking at you, and eventually it's going to kill you. So I just don't want to wear the mask no more. I was the Marine that was writing poetry because I was falling apart because I was tired of going to funerals. And I'm a leader. I had to write it in poems to save my life. Yeah, I wasn't tough in that. I'm the Marine that the test I did. I'm an expert in everything I shoot. Black belt mixed martial arts, line training, everything we do about killing. I know it. I hate it. I hate violence. Person keeps a gun on him every day. Don't want to have any violence, but I'm fluent in violence. I'm transparent enough to say, like, I don't want any problems for real. But if they have a problem, it's no problem. Right?
Yeah.
Also transparent enough to say I'm supposed to be a tough man and I cry in the shower very hard. If people say, why? Like, you just got to cry hard. Like, where's me got to learn how to cry hard? Like the ugly Viola Davis cry. Like, stop. You're going in the shower when the water's hitting your face, though, so you can tell yourself you're not really crying that hard. But it's like Jenna says, it's like taking your soul to the laundromat, right? I just don't want to wear a mask anymore, and I don't want to do it on stages. So when I go talk to kids, I've learned more from the losses of my life than I've ever learned from the wins. So I'll be transparent about I still got a phobia. My heart still rumbles. I'm still not tough enough to come all the way out of my mask right now. And I'm cool with being laughed at and joked and all of that. But as long as it brings me peace, I'm cool. Some people need to be free enough to take their mask off and say, listen, I'm hurting for real.
Now, one last question. Is Life your real name?
Life is to me what Muhammad Ali is to Cassius Clay.
Okay.
Perfect. That's all we need.
Gentlemen, I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you all for having me. I apologize for being in the car. But I tell the people all the time, who I am is not determined by where I am, but where I am might be definitely determined by who I am.
And just absolutely love your authenticity, mate. And that's what resonates with me personally is when somebody's truly authentic and removing all the crap out of their conversation and their social media. Loving your content.
Thank you very much. If you have any places for me to speak in Australia, let's line it up. Let's go.
I feel sad that you came to Australia and the only place you saw was Townsville.
Yeah, I was in town. I came twice, actually. They flew me back out. I spoke. I went to the prisons there, homeless shelters, spoke at that conference. I've been through so much, right? I'm blessed. Even in my prison program, this is going to sound absolutely crazy. My best friend got shot in the head. It's my best friend waiting for his kids to come off of the school bus. Craziest time. I get a call. I drive there. I get there. I'm standing there with his family, his kid's mother, his mom, his brother passed away now, and they're looking like, life, what we're gonna do? Like it was like Bubs, that's my other names. It's Bubs, what we're gonna do? So I'm looking at him, and I could tell like he's not in there. Like they open his eyes, he's not in there, and I'm like, so they pulled the plug. It's my best friend. This is everything, right? I have a prison program that I'm a part of, the Academy of Hope. Andre Norman is a great guy. Andre Norman is the brain trust of this group. You should probably definitely link with Andre Norman. It's in a prison in South Carolina. He calls me one day, says, Life, we're going to take the most violent offenders in South Carolina. He calls my phone. I want you to hear this conversation. There's a war that happened in the prison. 24 hours, 7 people were murdered. Over 30 people are brutally stabbed. They locked this prison down for a year. Andre Norman's been in prison 14 years, came home. Is probably the most connected human that I've ever met in my life. Right? He calls me and he says, hey, Life, we're going to do this thing. I'm like, what are we going to do, Dre? He said, so we're going to go to South Carolina. We're going to take the most violent offenders in the state of South Carolina, put them all in one cell, and we're going to guarantee no violence.
Okay, righto.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, let's do it, right? We take the top gang leaders, top influencers, the most violent against staff and inmate culture together. Been in there 5.5 years. We had one fight on our block, 0 pieces of metal found on the block. They're actually saving lives. There's a video on my page of a guy getting stabbed, one of the COs. That's one of our guys saving his life. They're actually being deployed to save lives inside the prison now. These are rival gang members that were just cutting each other, and they're in there teaching other people. But the thing was, how did this loop to my best friend? I get a call. The guy that killed my best friend, his family is asking me to get him in the program. Wow. It's the craziest thing in the world. I'm like, God, I know you're not talking to me. Like, so I ignored it first. I'm like, I'm not doing it. All right. Next day I get a call. I'm not doing it. Next day I get a call from inside. Everybody must have forgot this is my best friend on the planet. So I take it to the floor in the prison. There's a thing you got to have a town hall meeting in prison, right? So if you do something stupid, you got to take it to the floor and hold court on the floor in the prison. So I walk in, and we don't have any police escorts. We're in the block. It's not like we're in the library. You know, you're in the block. Like, you're in prison for the day. Whatever happens, you got to go with it, right? So I come in. I have to notify the organization that he's a part of. That's the gang that he's part of. Bring the big homie of that gang. I bring a Muslim brother, Christian brother, I bring a G, I bring the Bloods. We're all in there. So I got this situation. And I started explaining what had happened. Now I have to bring his gang in because he falls under this echelon of leadership, right? And I'm tussling with this thing. And the wildest guy in the prison goes, "Hey, Life, let me tell you a story." He tells me the story about this guy that killed his cousin that he sat on for 8 years. And he was bent on, I'm going to kill him, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of those guys that's best in war, though. He gets to the end of the story. He says, I walk in the room, got the biggest knife in the room, about to kill him. And he looks at him and says, "Give me your phone." He takes his phone and the guy thinks it's over. He calls his parents on the phone and says, "Hey, leave this guy alone. He's a good guy. He should be coming home." So I'm looking like, "You saved who?" He said, "Life, what I'm telling you is you got us in here with people that we've been to war with. And you told us that we have to learn how to actually operate together in unison. We would expect you to bring this kid into this program because now you're charged to do what you're telling us to do."
Wow.
I mentor him every day, and it's the catalyst of if he walks out of that building the same way he walks in 25 years, he has to do. If I allow him to walk out the same way, then my guy died for no reason. Yeah. It's the hardest thing in my life, but that's my mascot.
Life, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Brown Park podcast. Go and check out your socials. We'll link to it obviously in the stories and the details of this podcast as well. But man, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much for just pulling over on the side of a road somewhere in North Carolina and having a chat to us today.
Oh, yes, indeed. Thank you all for having me. I think it's very important. I did look through a lot of your page, and to see what you're doing and what you're bringing and the light that you're shedding in the world is very important. So I greatly appreciate the fact that you created a space for people to be vulnerable without trauma sharing, but giving people tangible steps on how they can free themselves. Because a lot of us are surrounded by people who lose and we never see the winners. So what you're doing is super necessary on an international level, and I thank y'all for having me.
Thanks, mate. Hey, and like you say, when you come to Australia, or if you get out to Australia, we can take you somewhere better than Townsville, like Gold Coast, Sydney, Melbourne. Yeah, look, when you get over here, man, we'll go out and show you something half decent.
Yes, indeed. Have a beautiful day. I appreciate you.
The Brown Podcast.
Why are you happy?
Because